Chapter 14, The Confrontation. I picked my son up from my ex-wife's home and intended on spending some much-needed quality time with him. Needing a break myself, I brought him with me to visit my parents, who were staying by the beach. It was a warm summer evening on July 29, 2003. Dalton, who was now 8 years old. The MidState Fair was a huge attraction, drawing big-name stars like Toby Keith, Kenny Chesney, Steely Dan, and Alan Jackson. That day, I must have gone on every ride. Dalton held my hand, leading me from one ride to the next. A few times, I thought I was going to be sick, but seeing all the fun he was having, I couldn't stop. I let him lead me from one roller coaster to the next, and I enjoyed every minute of it. At about 11 o'clock that night, the day's excitement had worn Dalton out. As we were leaving the fair, hand in hand, just passing through the main gate, I heard someone yell my name. "Hey, Vodka." I turned and recognized Correctional Sergeant James George and a woman sitting on a bench. I stepped towards Sergeant George to exchange a friendly handshake when all of a sudden, Sergeant George leapt from the bench. Catching me off guard, he yelled, demanding to know if I was suing Officer Archibald. I felt my son's hand clenched tightly down on mine. I moved forward and put myself between George and Dalton. I told George I could not talk about the matter. He then waved his hand towards my face with a closed fist and in a threatening tone repeatedly told me that I had to drop the case. People began to take notice of the confrontation. George went on to shout that Archibald was a close friend of his and that I needed to back off and let it go. Dalton pulled down on my hand, telling me he was scared. That was it. I immediately placed my hand onto my concealed weapon and rushed towards my vehicle. I got Dalton in as quickly as possible and took off. After the encounter with Sergeant George, I began to experience more anxiety and emotional distress. I now not only feared for my own safety, but for the safety of those around me, especially my son. The next morning, I called Lanny and advised him of the situation at the fair. Lanny informed me that Sergeant George was under violation of the law for intimidating and/or threatening a witness, and that he would make certain he would be punished for his actions. Lanny then told me it would be a good idea for me to go into hiding. Our trip was cut short. I immediately checked out of the hotel we were staying at, drove over to my parents, and informed them about what had occurred the night before. We said our goodbyes, my parents giving Dalton the traditional $50 bill to buy whatever he wanted. "Bye, Grandma." No. "Until we meet again," she said. In the car, Dalton was sleeping, so I took the time to call Lanny again. I guess in that short period of time, he did some research and found Sergeant George was under violation of Penal Code 136.1, which states 136.1a, except as provided in subdivision C. Any person who does any of the following is guilty of a public offense and shall be punished by imprisonment in the county jail for not more than 1 year or in the state prison. 1. Knowingly and maliciously prevents or dissuades any witness or victim from attending or giving testimony at any trial, proceeding, or inquiry authorized by law. 2. Knowingly and maliciously attempts to prevent or dissuade any witness or victim from attending or giving testimony at any trial, proceeding, or inquiry authorized by law. He continued to say George had even broken California Government Code 854.7.2, which states B, in pertinent part, that an improper governmental activity means any activity by a state agency or by an employee that is undertaken in the performance of the employee's official duties, and that is in violation of any state or federal law or regulation. Lanny filed a complaint to the State Personnel Board of Control, Government Claims Branch, 6 months later on January 28, 2004. It was finally reviewed. Soon after, I received a call from Lanny saying he had just received a letter from the State Personnel Board. The incident with Sergeant George was scheduled for a hearing next year, on June 8, 2005 in Salinas, California.